Yes, it is consecutive wins for Nigeria in the CAF Footballer of the Year Award. 2023, it was Victor Osimhen, and 2024, it is Ademola Lookman. With that, I welcome you to another exciting edition of Sports Pizza. My name is Edwin Onyebolise. I'm thoroughly excited to be here today. And of course, I have Abe David with me on set. We have a lot to unpack on the show today, from the CAF Award to the games that went down in Europe, and of course on the local scene, not forgetting what's going down in Saudi Arabia this weekend. All of this and so much more on today's edition of Sports Pizza. But first, we need to go on a short break. Don't change the channel. We will be right back. Welcome back to the show. It is Sports Pizza. Edwin and Abe David on set. David, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Edwin, thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. I think for Lookman, exciting one from. I mean, we waited for 26 years to get, and then two come along right away. And I think it's a fantastic one. For last year, Osimhen was head and shoulders above everyone. This year, it was a little bit closer, but Lookman still stood out generally. And I'm happy for him. Look at the career he has had. Broke out at Charlton, went to Everton, struggled, went to Leicester, struggled, went to Germany, all over the place. But I think he has found a home in Atalanta. Gasperini is doing magic for him. And to now think he's one of the best players in the world at this point in time. Fantastic.
Yeah, it was one of the worst kept secrets in Africa. How do you see this affecting his career positively? Is he expected to remain with Atalanta? Should he push for a move to a bigger team that will guarantee him titles?
I think for me, the Atalanta move was, I think, a risk. He took a risk to go to a team, not the very biggest of teams, but a place where he could find a solid footing. And I think it has worked out for him. You look at the quality he has. This is somebody who, on the ball now, genuinely, you look at him and you feel something good is about to happen. And that's the kind of fear factor you get from the very best in the best. I think it can even make both to say, apart from Vinicius Junior, probably the best left winger in world football at this point in time. I think a move to a bigger team, a team where we have a chance, to actually challenge for the biggest titles is what's left for him now.
Maybe that move should be Manchester City or maybe Arsenal. What do you think?
I mean, it's not too tough, not too big to ask. I mean, this is one of the best players in the world, one of the best players on the African continent, a key player for Nigeria, one of the best teams on the continent. I think for me, Manchester City not too far, because options they have is better than the options they have, far cry from there. And also Arsenal. Any of those things, but when they now talk about the fact genuine shot are winning titles, I'm an Arsenal fan, but City will give him that. Would he be the one to propel Arsenal? That's a gamble. But for a sure thing, Manchester City for me. All
right, this takes us to the English Premier League. Where do we start? Of course, it is the Manchester derby. Manchester United did the unthinkable against Manchester City. Like we've seen in the past couple of weeks with Manchester City, they crumble when there's a bit of pressure applied. And we saw it 88 minutes, a penalty from nowhere. United were handed a lifeline. And a couple of seconds later, it was Ahmad who turned around the tie. What's the explanation for City's inability to not only hold on to their lead, but also increase their lead and give themselves a buffer or cushion?
I think for me, these are the familiar patterns we've seen over the course of this terrible run they've had. Players are not just up to the paces. Mentally, it's like they've checked out. Physically, they're also not giving their all. They are second to every ball, second to every tackle. And it's really surprising how this team has fallen to this level. And I think even at that point when they were 1-0 up, I felt United, even watching that game, I felt United would still get a chance, maybe get an equalizer, at least a draw. Because City had that, they were leading in that game, but they did not have the game by the scruff of the neck. They were just holding or barely holding. And United had opportunities to get into that game because City were fragile. That fragility, you look at City and then you see fragility. And that's not something, as you said, with the City team we've seen.
All right, David, let's focus on Manchester United for a moment. Rashford and Garnacho were left out completely from the matchday squad. Ruben Amorim came out to say, hey, it wasn't a disciplinary action. I need everyone to be on the same level. I need everyone to be on board. It felt more like a disciplinary action if you go by the reasons he gave. But beyond that, he's further strengthened his grip on this team. It means that if you don't fall in line, you'll be left out. And Rashford and Garnacho have seen also that without them, United, one, the biggest test of the season so far.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for Ruben Amorim, one key thing he has done is he has set the standard that he wants his team to get to. And it feels like, as for every player, if you cannot meet that, if you fall short of that standard, you cannot get up to that standard, then you're out the door. Only those who can meet that standard or rise above it are able to actually be selected on a match. And I think Amorim has set a pace, and everybody who is going to join him on this journey to where he's taking United to fall in line.
All right, David, let's focus on City for a moment. 6 months ago, they just won their 4th consecutive title, narrowly lost to Real Madrid in the semi-final of the Champions League, lost to Manchester United in the final of the FA Cup. They were this close to repeating a treble, but 6 months later, they're a shadow of themselves. David, what has gone wrong?
I think for me, Pep Guardiola built a team, he built a structure that looked like maybe 1 or 2 blocks away from actually collapsing. Last season, we saw some frailties at the beginning of the season. They rallied back in the second half of the season to actually lead the Premier League title and also get to semi-final of the Champions, the FA Cup final. But we saw some frailties. It seems like this season maybe can add the absence of Rodri, the injury, then Kevin De Bruyne missing for a major part of the season. Then we looked at the team mentally also. I mentioned earlier, it seems like they've checked out. Like, these players don't want to raise their levels to the levels you expect. And we talked about Guardiola over the course of his career. People have always pointed the fingers that he doesn't have a plan B. It seems like it's one way or no other way. It's my way or the highway. And I think that's what has set in. You look at other coaches in this situation where they have injury crisis, they try to find ways to coach around it, make different solutions. But Pep Guardiola seems to set up the team the same way. Just maybe put players in different positions. You see Martinez playing out wide. Doesn't make sense to me. And you see other options, and you feel you are putting the same structure, but now putting square pegs in a round. It's not going to work. Everything is falling apart right now.
How close is he to finding a solution?
I don't think the solution is going to be found in the squad that he currently has right now, because he's not putting out the right messages compared to some other managers. I listened to Ancelotti's interview over the weekend after their draw, and compared to Pep's interview. Pep's statement was, until we get our players back, we cannot get better results. But Ancelotti's statement was, we will get better when those players return. We are playing well, but we'll get better when those players. And I think that's the disparity between both approaches. All
right, from Manchester United and City, let's move straight to Arsenal, who seem to be struggling in this moment. They went through a rough patch some weeks ago. Followed it up with consecutive impressive wins, but right now it's consecutive draws against Fulham and of course against Everton. David, this was supposed to be Arsenal's year. This was supposed to be the year they capitalized on City's mistakes, but they seem to have followed City's path.
Yeah, unfortunately for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, he has been manager of the club for 5 years plus now. We've seen familiar patterns over the course of his time. One thing we know understand from him is the manager who likes to control games. We see a lot of that from Arsenal, even from the early parts of the season, and even from when he took over the job. But one thing that is lacking, and I don't understand why he has not decided to make it a big issue, find solutions to, is they control games, but they lack cutting edge. They score a lot of goals when it matters, but when the goals are actually needed, they find it difficult to score those goals. It's familiar patterns, and he's struggling. Like they are struggling right now, and I don't understand why it's going like that. They need a cutting edge, a striker, because they have Bukayo Saka. He gives you goals when it's provided for him, but when they actually need it, they find it difficult to score.
Talking about Saka, his partnership with Martin Odegaard on the right is one of the best in Europe, not just in England. Now you look at that partnership, how productive and influential it is. You compare it to the right side, that is almost non-existent. Feels like nothing happens there. Feels like an afterthought if something doesn't go right on the right. And I think it's happening in the team. I don't know if you agree with me. I also think it's a coaching problem, because if you can get it right on the right, you can also get it right on the left.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. The fact that it's statistically proven Arsenal's attack, 70% of their attacking situations are created from the right. It feels like the left is just an afterthought, like you put it. And it feels like teams know it. If we can sit here and talk about it, we can see it. Teams are seeing it. We looked at the Everton game over the course of it. Everton almost sacrificed their left-hand side completely and focused on the right and camped there, feeling this way Arsenal is going to, you know what Arsenal is going to do. Odegaard gets the ball and next thing shifts to Saka back to Odegaard. And it seems like that's where the major source of Arsenal's attack is. And it's a problem. If Arteta doesn't see it as a problem, why Arsenal are not able to vary their attacking options, I think they will become very predictable.
Talking about predictable, do you think Liverpool are entering their own crisis mode. It's consecutive draws for them.
Yeah.
First against Newcastle, and now against Fulham at Anfield. Now, they started the season in blistering form.
Yeah.
We said it on the show a couple of weeks ago that every challenger will go through their own rough patch. Are there signs that Liverpool are entering that rough patch phase?
Yeah, I think so. I think look at how those games have panned out. Look at the Newcastle game. Look at the Fulham game. They had to claw their way back from difficult situations, and I think they are being tested right now. At the beginning of the season, probably people had not figured out and slot much at that point in the season and how the team set up. But now I think teams have started to understand them and are going at them. But also the injury to Konate. I think I mentioned it some weeks ago how it's important. The partnership with Van Dijk was one of the foundations of their, you're not looking at guys like Gomez, Jared Kwanzaa coming in to fill it. It's not going to be the same, and I think that's where the issues are beginning to arise.
Also, part of the issue, I think personally, is that they are heavily reliant on Mohamed Salah now. So it's not a bad thing to rely on Salah's quality.
Yeah.
Barcelona relied on Messi. Real Madrid relied on Cristiano Ronaldo, XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But they had other source of goals. And I think that's what Liverpool currently lacking. Once Salah is shackled, Diaz has been good in games. He's fizzled out.
Yeah.
Cody Gakpo can be good today, can be good tomorrow. The less said about Nunes, the better. Jota is back. Maybe that will give them some sort of comfort. But I think they need to also find ways to score without Salah being heavily involved.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I think majorly, I talked about the defense being a problem. At the beginning of the season, they were keeping clean sheets of one, and now they've conceded 5 in the last 2 games. Even in the Champions League, they are still solid there. But in the league, I think they are beginning to get found out. Salah is going to provide the goals, provide assists, if they can do that much. But now it seems like they are not getting enough of it, and they are now conceding. So everything is now clashing with each other. Chelsea
are 2 points behind Liverpool, haven't played a game more. Enzo Maresca said, hey, we're not in the title race. The team side of us, the teams that have been here before, have more experience than us. And he pointed out something very instructive, which I think maybe it's a good pointer to why Chelsea are not in the title race. He said the goal we considered against Brentford are goals title contenders don't concede. Is that enough to discredit Chelsea for being in the title race?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of the reasons why, personally, I've also not put them completely in the title race. They will challenge, no, not challenge, they're in the title race. But, in a race, one person might be 10 seconds ahead. So I think they're in the race, but they are not genuine contenders because of this. I watched the Brentford game, the kind of opportunities they gave Brentford. Brentford had opportunity to score 3 goals in that game. And if you're a title contender and you play that kind of open game week in, week out, you'll be found that eventually they will do enough to be in the top 4, be enough to at least put themselves in a race. But I don't think they will be genuine contenders at the end of the season.
Straight up, we'll go to the Spanish La Liga, where once again Barcelona dropped more points. It's consecutive home losses to Las Palmas and Leganes. 5 points from a possible 18. They are joint top right now with Atletico Madrid. The big game coming down this weekend. Atletico Madrid versus FC Barcelona. David, personally, I think Barcelona's lack of quality in comparison to their title rivals is beginning to show, and that is why they have regressed to the mean, while other clubs, the Real Madrids and the Atletico Madrids, are catching up.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you look at the way they performed, and one thing we need to understand is this Barcelona team have been profiled wrongly. They are counter-attacking. That's where they create their best chances, and when they don't have opportunities for those counter-attacking situations, they struggle to actually create in midfield, because Pedri, for all of the quality he has, he doesn't create enough. He's good in the deeper areas, try to progress, but in the final third, he's not your most lethal threat in the final third. And Yamal is their major source of creativity, and I mean that's a lot of load on the 17-year-old. And I agree with you that the quality, look at their midfield, look at their defense, look at the players that are there. Especially midfield, Casado is somebody who last season was an unknown, and now you're expecting him to lead a title chart. That's something strange. So I think for that reason, that quality gap is where they have a lot of issues.
David, earlier you talked about Pep Guardiola and why you can't understand his reason for not adapting or changing things. Same can be said for Hansi Flick. It's one way, my way, or no other way? Is dogmatism a weakness?
Yeah, I think so, and that's why I find it difficult with managers that actually, they espouse a particular philosophy and they are ready to die on that hill, and that's the problem I have. Managers have to be flexible. You need to have options. You need to do different things. You look at Barcelona, they are going to play a high line, an ultra aggressive high line. You are just waiting for how you are going to capitalize on it, and they are counter-attacking team. That's where they create options. You deny them those chances to counter-attack you, and then they find it difficult to create. And I think it's going to be a problem in the long run for them this season.
And for Real Madrid, 3-3 ended against Rayo Vallecano. At some point, they were 2 goals down, found their way back, took the lead. Vallecano said, no, today, we're not giving up. They got a deserved equalizer, ended 3-3, 6 goals on the day. But the key for me was Vini on the bench. Was that an error? Do you think it was an error from Carlo Ancelotti not starting Vinicius Junior?
I don't think so, because judging by how they play, I think Rodrigo was good enough in that game. I think he provided a lot of spark. Jude Bellingham as well also was good in that game. I think where they had issues was their defense. If you look at the goals they conceded, it was major defensive mistakes. The first goal was a long ball into the box and they couldn't clear. Second as well, and then the third one was also just a cross into the box and somebody got ahead of Rodrigo to score. And I think it was defensively that they struggled. They still created enough chances to get a win in that game, but Vallecano exploited their defensive issues. And
for their city rivals, Atletico Madrid, David, am I wrong to say they are in the driving seat? Now, 11 consecutive wins in all competitions, and you spoke glowingly about the quality in this squad, how they've rotated, and how they've found different ways to win games. You look at how well they've played, you compare it to Real Madrid and Barcelona. Again, am I wrong to say that Atletico Madrid are in the driving seat? I know both Barcelona and Real Madrid are more illustrious rivals. But I think in this moment, I can't look beyond Atletico Madrid. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of stability and what they have in their squad and the manager, I think they are primed, to be the major driving force in this title race. I looked at their game over the weekend. It was a difficult game, a struggle. And talk about 2 p.m. kickoff in La Liga. Most teams struggle, especially the big teams when they are putting that time slot. They struggle. There's a lot of research on that, but I think they did what they needed to do. In that game, I saw Diego Simeone change tactics like 2 or 3 times just to adjust. And the fact the players he was bringing from the bench, you were just scared that what was going to happen. So they have this amount of riches on the bench. I mean, Barcelona and Real Madrid will be biting their fingers to have the quality that Diego Simeone can afford to call from his bench. All right, there's so much, like I said, to unpack on the show. At this point, we need to catch our breath, go on a short break. When we return, there's more on the other side. Welcome back to the show. It is still Sports Pizza. Do remember to give us a follow on our social media platform. The handles are showing on your screen. Quick one from the Italian Serie A. For Atalanta, the march to an unlikely title win continues. For them, no mountain looks insurmountable in this moment. Yeah, absolutely. When you have Gianpiero Gasperini in charge, leading the charge, he has paid his dues in the Serie A, especially with Atalanta. And I think this season, I just have a feeling that they have what it takes to do. The game against Cagliari the weekend was a difficult one, but they ground out the result they needed to. So they can play fancy football, they can score goals when they need to, and then when they need a goal to win, they can get it. And I think that's why, for me, they look like the most prime candidate. The Inter are somewhere always want to be in the shop, but consistently, right now, I look at them ahead of Napoli and ahead of Inter Milan. And in the Bundesliga, David, Bayern Munich lost to Mainz. More questions for Vincent Kompany. Yeah, absolutely. But I think the only saving grace he has is that the current serious challenger they have is Bayer Leverkusen. They are 7 points behind. But if Leverkusen can maybe get a run, which they failed to do this season, surprisingly, their title defense has been a little bit shaky. But I think they are getting back into form right now. And I think if they can mount a serious challenge, maybe go on a run, they can give Bayern a real push. But Bayern look comfortable enough to at least glide over to a title. All right, enough of football, David. Let's do a bit of boxing. It's Saudi Arabia this weekend. Usyk versus Fury 2. It's a rematch. We saw the first fight in May, and while it went the distance, Usyk was announced as the winner and won by points. Do you see same happening, or you think Tyson Fury will regain his belt?
I just think for me, Usyk is just something different in the heavyweight. You know, coming from the cruiserweight to the heavyweight, it seems like they've not been able to. Nobody in the heavyweight has been able to actually, you know, gauge him out and understand what exactly he brings. I think one advantage he has over most of these heavyweight boxers is because coming from a lower weight category, his punch power is not as strong, but he's a good puncher. He's able to go long distances and throw more punches, and I think that's why it has been difficult for the likes of Fury Joshua to actually source him out. And for that reason, I think he will have another victory over Fury this weekend.
Is this a career-defining fight for 35-year-old Tyson Fury?
Yes, so I think it is, considering how his career has gone. You know, he has been unbeaten previously until he faced Usyk, his first serious challenger, and he lost the first fight. If he loses the second one, at the point, you know, he retired at some point and he had to come back. Probably I don't see him, you know, getting that hunger again to go.
And that is how we drop anchor on today's show. I'm sure you've had fun with us. Exciting time on Sports Pizza. Do remember to give us a follow on our social media platforms. As always, we leave you with our video for the week. The next time you see us, it's going to be Merry Christmas. Do enjoy yourself. Have fun. Ensure that you spread love. We'll see you same time next week. David, thank you for being a part of the show.
Ed, you know, it's a pleasure to be here. From Mame David, is goodbye.
And from me, Edwin, do have a fantastic end of the year. Merry Christmas. Have fun.